welcome to DeathGroundReviews, guys. I'm Alan, and I've got with me again Rami Ungar, the horror writer. Welcome, Rami.
What's up, everyone? It's Rami Ungar, the writer, here from Columbus, Ohio.
But yeah, the movie we are reviewing today is The Color Out of Space. So this came out in 2019, directed by Richard Stanley.
I went to a theater clear across the other side of town from me just to see this movie because nowhere else close to me was it playing. But I am such an H.P. Lovecraft fan, and Color Out of Space is like one of my favorite stories by him. I drove in the middle of chilly winter or braving snow and traffic to see this movie, and I was not disappointed.
I think it was 81 theaters was all that was shown in. It started at a film festival, and then they released in like 81 theaters. That's cool that you came across one at work. Although maybe it did have a wider distribution after that too, though. Had a $6
I
million
can say that was
budget.
streaming.
And yeah, that's right. That's
You
where
go
I
first.
first heard of it. And $1 million is what it made in the box office. So didn't quite break even. So yeah, Richard Stanley directs, starring, we've got Madeline Arthur, Jolie Richardson, Nicolas Cage, Julian Hilliard, Elliot Knight, and Tommy Chong.
As in Cheech and Chong. Yeah, you heard that right, folks. And yeah, he is kind of there as a bit of comic relief, but honestly, he does not upstage the cast or add too much humor.
Nope.
Or actually, this movie does a great job of balancing its humor with its horror because it starts out very lighthearted. And Kate Nicolas Cage, he is a weird as hell actor.
Oh
And
yes.
it always comes through in his performances, but it here it works really well. It kind of adds to the horror later on in the movie as things start getting weird. And Tommy Chong's character, who is just as much a stoner as you would expect from a Cheech and Chong character, he kind of he seems like a really weird paranoid hippie dude, but he adds something to the story by his presence. He's more aware of what's going on than others, but but I think by the time he understands things are happening, both his paranoia and just the fact that things are happening makes it too late for him to escape.
So I just want to give a tiny background about this movie, just for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
about the Gardner family. They move to this farmstead just out in the middle of nowhere because they're trying to get away from the hustle of the 21st century. And a meteorite hits the ground in this farmstead, and this strange alien force begins to infect the land, infect them, and just spreads throughout, mutating and causing all kinds of weird happenings. So that's kind of a basic background of the story. And I wanted to ask you, Rami, you were mentioning Nicolas Cage's Gonzo performance, and some argued that he pushed into self-parody, almost like he was utilizing some of his over-the-top aspects from other films that you've seen, maybe The Wicker Man or Face Off, or certain characteristics he likes to show in films. And some felt he was almost self-parodying that. Did you feel that in any way? I didn't. I thought he pulled it off well.
Well, before I answer that, I just want to say for the audience out there, the reason why it's called The Color Out of Space is because the alien entity, when we do see it, it looks like he, we perceive it as like a very weird shade of pink and purple that's really hard to gauge. And that's something we're gonna have to talk about later, the color palette of this film, because
Yeah.
it is a part of the movie and it's almost a character in itself, the way the color is used or how it's utilized in the setting. But to answer your question, if he did go into self-parody, then it worked. I mean, it, it was just freaking hilarious watching him act like so his usual weird self, followed by, I mean, hey, I'm showing my displeasure by acting like my dad, but it sounds like a teenage girl who's upset with her parents. And, and it ju- but it just but it was so funny, and you can't tell if that's really the character he's playing or that's the influence of the color, the alien, whatever we're dealing with.
I felt the same way. Yeah, I thought his performance worked well. I thought he had a really good chemistry with just the fellow actors around him. I thought that young lady Madeline did very well too. She did a good job portraying just the insecurities and the teenage angst of her character. It worked really well.
You could see that she wanted to get the heck out of there, but she also really loved her family, and what was happening to them really tore her up, especially how helpless she felt. And that's the thing, no matter what everyone tried, they were completely helpless once they were under the influence of the entity. I mean, whatever it was, it got into the water, it got into them, and it started changing them and making them do and say things and mutating them. Oh, the scene with the cutting board, which is an early
Oh yes.
manifestation of the entity's influence. I'm not going to give it away any spoilers, but even I've seen this film probably 20 times. It's one of my top six, easy. And that scene with the cutting board still gets me every time. Every time I know it's coming, but I still cringe up like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Music. Didn't you love that musical
Oh,
score?
Colin Stetson,
Oh
he has
man.
made a name for himself doing horror soundtracks. He did this film, he did uh he did Hereditary. I think someone else did The Lighthouse, but he's doing the Uzumaki adaptation.
That musical score worked the same way as the color in the movie. You know, it just suggests so well the unfathomable and the unknowable. And yeah, it was created the perfect creepy atmosphere.
And oh my god, the color. I mean, when you're there, during the early parts of the film, the area is they're in, it's beautiful, but it's a natural beauty. There's a lot, and the colors are all natural. Well, when you see the grass, it's really just regular green grass. But after a while, after the entity infects the land, everything just starts getting much more vibrant, and like being seen through a filter, and it just kind of adds this unnaturalness. Like you almost feel like you're on a set piece, even though you know it's actually being filmed on an actual farm in Bulgaria. And yes, I know it was filmed in Bulgaria. I also know that the dog in the film is a Czechoslovakian wolfhound. I figured that out.
Speaking of facts and trivia, can you name me the Lovecraftian references in the movie?
Oh, where do I start? Well, for one thing, in the hydrologist characters was sent from Arkham, which is love the center of Lovecraft's universe. Uh it's basically a haunted city full of creepy stuff. Innsmouth and Dunwich, two towns this with Lovecraft stories set in them, are mentioned by name. The daughter has a copy of the Necronomicon. There are probably a bunch of other references that I can't think of at the
So
moment,
so
but
so
those are the
yeah,
main ones I'm thinking of.
yeah, so in the weather report, that's where when Lavinia, when she's washing the dishes, the weather report mentions Arkham, along with Innsmouth, Dunwich, and Kingsport. And then all the settings are different parts of H.P. Lovecraft stories. When Lavinia questions Benny about a former girlfriend from Ellsbury, that's another, I guess, town that belongs to the Lovecraft universe. Those were a couple that I
Really missed that one.
did you?
It's a good eye on you.
So the cutting board scene gets you every time. For me, it was the scene where the mother combines with the son. I mean, that horrified me for sure.
Both of them are kind of like references to the Thing, which is a Lovecraftian cosmic horror story in and of itself. And it sounds like she's just making monster noises, both of them. But if you listen, if you put on subtitles, you see she's actually talking and she's lost her freaking mind because she's talking about eating her own daughter. We really don't understand what the entity is or why it's doing what it's doing. Is it changing things to understand it? Is it changing things and growing things so that it can get back into space and maybe find its home world? We can't really be certain. We just know that it exists, that it's changing everything around it, and near the end, it's doing a whole lot more crazy shit as it prepares. Well, I don't want to spoil it. Oh yeah, definitely check this out. Though you better you might want to watch it with someone else because even veteran horror fans find this one scary.
Color out of space, guys. That concludes our review for today. But also, Rami, tell us a little bit more about this book you've got coming out. Hannah, another.
Well, if you say so. Well, I've got a new book coming out September 23rd. Hannah and Other Stories. It's a collection of short stories, and there are 7 in them, original stories, and they're all very interesting. And I think that they might scare some of them might scare you. I mean, we got one that's about a pair of ghost hunters going into an abandoned school and getting more than they bargained for. That's the title story, Hannah. You got a story that I would like to call Alice in Wonderland meets Slender Man, or that's how I describe it. There's one that's very in the vein of Lovecraft or cosmic horror, called What Error Awoke, and if it kind of combines of uh, classic English literature with cosmic horror and some of the events we've dealt with over the past few years. There's a story that's set in the Paris catacombs that I'm really proud of. There's another story about a town that goes kind of insane and has a bit of cosmic horror in it as well. Uh, there's a story about a teenage girl who ends up becoming what could be termed as a serial killer in the making. And oh, you're gonna love this. There's a story about a ranch, a horse ranch, raising carnivorous horses. I'm still not entirely sure where that came from. I don't think it was from the Greek myth of Hercules, because one of his 12 labors was apparently to steal these mad mares that had a taste for human flesh. I only learned about that recently. This book was accepted for publication in 2021. So anyway, it's coming out soon. I'm doing as much advertising as I can to make sure that people want to read it. And at the time we're recording this, we're almost done with it. We're just got to prepare the final draft, and then we'll be prepared to release it to and send copies to the advanced readers and hopefully build some buzz. But yeah, it's available for pre-order now from BSC Publishing Group. If you go to their website on or their page on Square or their store on Square, then you can pre-order it for $3.99. Please check it out. It's going to be a great read. You're probably going to enjoy it, and I really cannot wait to hear what you think of it.
Awesome, Rami. I'm looking forward to it, man. Good news to look forward to. Do you have any novels in the works right now too?
There is a novel I was working on for a little while that I want to get back to. It's a mummy novel that I'm tentatively calling Brawler. But it's kind of been off I kind of put it on the back burner when work on Hannah kind of ramped up, and then it kind of went off the stove. I would like to get it back on the stove at some point, but first I've got to finish a few other things. In addition to working on Hannah, I'm also working on a couple of short stories and editing a bunch of novelettes and novellas. So hopefully with I'll be able to get back to it before the end of the year, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, cool. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much for joining me on here and talking about Color Out of Space, along with all the other movies that we talk about.
No problem.
And this has been Death Ground Reviews. We'll see you next time, guys.
Pleasant nightmares. Peace.